As I visited them at their shop on Westminster Avenue, just next to Côte Saint Luc Road, and I had a wonderful experience, taste tested, and I said I have to have them on the program. Everybody knows you as Mrs. Roth, so they know the food from Mrs. Roth, and they know, of course, Avi Brook. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, I'm going to ask Avi, first of all, what's the title now? What's the name of your store now? Because you've both been around in different guises for many years, for over 50 years in some areas. So what is the name today over your store?
Today it's CSL Kosher and Mrs. Roth.
And Mrs. Roth, because of course, Mrs. Roth, you were in Saint Laurent for many years. You dealt with many different groups, whether it was with the Jewish schools providing lunches, whether it was IGA. You've worked with many groups over the years. So people know you as Mrs. Roth.
Yes, they know me.
You have a very interesting history, both of you together actually, because even though I thought you came from different parts of the world and met up in Montreal, in fact, your history goes back longer than that, before Avi was even born.
Exactly.
You're from Hungary.
I am from Hungary.
You're a Holocaust survivor.
Yes, I am.
And so you went into food.
Yes, I had no other choice because I didn't know the language. I came here. I was washing dishes before. That way, I came to Canada, no language. I didn't know how to write, how to read.
In English, of course.
In English, I mean. And I had to feed, you have to feed the family. So that was the easiest. I used to wash dishes in 3 synagogues.
And how did you get involved in food in the sense, when you were younger, before the war, were you interested in food at all?
Before the war, I was 7-year-old.
So that was probably a little too young.
A little bit too young.
Do you have memories of your mother or your grandmother's cooking?
My mother had a restaurant in Hungary. So maybe it was in the blood.
And in the Côte Saint Luc Kosher, there's various different types of food. So you incorporate Mrs. Roth's Eastern European cooking, and we're going to talk a little bit about her recipes and if she's interested in something and how she devises a way to figure it out. But you have in the store today, you have foods that you can cater. You have foods people walk in and buy. So that's either Chinese,
Right.
Eastern European,
Moroccan.
Moroccan. But you also have meat, and you also can do made to measure.
Exactly, and it's a specialty store and always been a specialty store. Nothing is pre-packed, everything cut fresh, and we do special orders to certain needs of people. So, for example, if you go to a supermarket, you have a package, and that's it.
The package, you have to take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it, but if you come to the store, you could have a package, let's say you need 2 pieces for a meal, you're going to get it. Let's say you have an affair, you could get, designed meat, cut like a crown, cut like a tent, etc., etc. So it's a specialty store.
So that's interesting. So let's say, because I know that something like Rosh Hashanah is just around the corner,
Right.
and sometimes people can't prepare everything, or they're having an extra big dinner this particular year for the new year. So somebody can come in and order either the meat not done, like I'm having 15 people or 17 people, I want to order this. Or can people order every, side dishes? Tell me what would happen if I wanted to come in to Côte Saint Luc and say, I need a Rosh Hashanah dinner or luncheon.
First of all, we if we know how many people, we can tell more or less, how much you need. We spice the food. We make it ready for the oven. You just have to cook it at home or we cook it for you, okay? We cater for every diet. If you are gluten-free, low sodium, diet, grilled, we cater to everybody.
What's interesting also, because I had a wonderful tour last week, is that although it's meat, there's a lot of meat, but if you have somebody who's in your party, and let's say you have Rosh Hashanah, but there's a teenager and a lady who don't eat any meat, you can also make certain
vegetarian, no problem.
So tell me a little bit about your recipes. You've been designing recipes for years. You have an idea and you run with it.
I can't give any recipe because, I know how it's supposed to taste.
The way she cooks, there's no measurement, there's no measuring cup or anything like this. You just take the meat, throw in it, feeling. You can't even see her doing it. So it's nothing written, nothing is taken from a book. It's all from
it's a
the
big
head.
problem because
So I'm telling her, you're getting older, you got to teach me, what,
But
and
you
she
have-
can't
you
because
have to have
you
it
take a
in
little
you.
bit of this, or this. So I have to stop to see, what she's taking, and estimate, what goes in this spot. So I think it's a natural talent. There is people, that knows how to cook, and the people that don't know how to cook. She knows how to cook, and she had a great teacher because I knew her mother. Her mother was a fantastic cook.
And this I just want to mention because we talked about how Mrs. Roth knew your family even before you
Yeah,
were
back
born.
home.
You were born in Israel,
Yes.
but your mother was from Hungary. Is that
Yes.
correct? So in fact, they knew each other in childhood.
Yes, I actually grew up in the same city, Debrecen in Hungary. My mom left in 1956 to Israel with her late brother. And then I think Mrs. Roth, and then her mother also, left in 1956. We were living different cities, in Israel. And then when her mother retired, she called my mom to find her a house in a religious area, and it happened to be next to our neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So her mother, moved to Rehovot, and basically they knew each other from home.
So when we'll give the love story away. So when her daughter went to go visit the grandmother, the love story began.
that's
Exactly,
really a love story
exactly.
because he didn't speak any English and my daughter didn't speak
Well,
Hebrew.
I always said I was set up. I said I was good, actually. Because my mom told me, you have to go to Olga, which is my wife's grandmother, and you have to take her a cake. And I said, why should I go? I was a teenager, and I didn't want to go. And she was insisting that I will go. So I went down there, with the cake, and I walk in, and I see this cute girl, sitting in the corner. So my stayed for 1 second, for a couple hours, and she went back home. We started to write to each other, came every summer, and 35 years later, we are together. So it
After
was,
4 children.
yeah.
So if you can stand having 4 children in our Montreal winters, I guess that it's a love story.
And you know what is how life works? We live together also in the same house. We build a house together.
And now you work together. And when I wasn't asking you whether to give away recipes, I wasn't going to ask to give you a recipe. What I was wondering is because you're of a certain age, and if people come to you and said, I want gluten-free, you could say, what's gluten-free? I don't want to, what is that? Or so low sodium, I can't cook like that. But in your store on Westminster, you have everything up to date. When somebody asks you, what about this, you're really ready, and your spirit is so young that you go and you try it.
Thank you. I do my best.
So I'm going to ask Avi. When I walked in, it was lovely. You have right in the front, you have Chinese. Then right beside, it's very multicultural. The food, you have the Eastern European food. What do you decide to make that day? Do you speak, because you have, not only is the food multicultural, but we walked in and we chatted with several of the people who work with you, many of them who work with you for many years. And so if you work in that industry and you work together so many years, you must all love each other. So how do you decide what you wake up in the morning and you speak to your mother-in-law, you speak to Mrs. Roth, and you say,
Well, basically we have like a set menu, but a lot depends on the day, depends on the weather. If it's a nice sunny day, you will cook light food. If it's rainy, we're going to cook heavier. So basically, it depends on the day. We have the counters that you saw, but basically it's only part of the business because a lot of people call in to cook for them specially. So for example, you're walking and you don't see stew, you could say, okay, Mrs. Roth, cook me please stew, and she will do it. I don't think you have too many stores like that in Montreal. Mm-hmm. So it's a funny combination between ready-made food store to a restaurant, actually, like a takeout restaurant. And also people request a thing and we'll try it and we'll see how it goes. So we also listen to our customer. It's not what only we want. So if somebody, like Thai food. We'll do Thai food, you know, and a lot of time it's a success. When you listen to your customer, you know, it's a success. So there's no like set rule, okay, this morning that's what I'm going to cook. So first of all, we'll see what's the weather and we call accordingly, and we'll try once in a while different things.
Well, it must work, because I know that when I came in to look at your colorful, wonderful display, you had a customer who had come in and you mentioned, oh, she's been with us for 30 years. Then there was, I brought somebody with me when we were walking around looking at the food, and the young lady turned to the other person and said, oh, this is the best, you have to try, and she pointed out things. So you must be doing something right, because they didn't know us and they were already exclaiming over your food.
It's been around for a long time, and like I said, you know, people come back. First of all, the food is good, and they know they could get what they want, not what I want to sell them. And it's a big thing, you know. It's like, okay, I walk in, I have the counter, and that's what I'm taking. But they know they have two options to get what they don't see. They have the option to take it. So I think this is a great thing. It's a great service.
So it's interesting as you're talking, it seems to me, because I was talking about, I guess that's looming large in my life, the Rosh Hashanah dinner, but they could also do for Shabbat, they could do a Sunday evening if they don't feel like cooking, you walk in.
A matter of fact, this morning I got an order for L'chaim, like huge order for L'chaim, and again, you know, she tells me what she wants, you know, it's not I telling her what she wants. And some people know what they want. So we cater, you know, a lot of things. We could cater Sheva Brachot, we could like engagement. We don't do the big parties. Big parties like weddings, like, we are not in this business. It's a little bit too late in Mrs. Roth's life, and mine too, you know.
I was going to say Chaval, but Mrs. Roth, tell me what is one of the favorite things that you have served, that you still serve today?
The schnitzel, my schnitzel started the whole Montreal, you know, everybody know me for that, okay? Knishes schnitzel, this is like everyday stuff what have to be on the counter.
And yourself, because of course you serve Chinese food, you serve Moroccan food. Do you still like your memories from home, your memories from your mother's kitchen?
My memory, and it's gonna bring back for you memories when you was brought up. You know, like for your childhood. I cook the same like your mother or your grandmother cooked.
So what keeps you going? Because obviously you're in very good hands with Avi.
My love to me.
I'm going to explain something to you, okay? The age is just a number, okay? How you feel, okay? You have to feel, okay. You know, I never want to retire. Never, ever, ever. I love what I'm doing, and it shows.
I think it does.
There's something very important, you know, this why people get to witness or why people do what they do, okay? I don't know if your dream was to be, to be a broadcast, on radio, but somehow you got to it, For me, I started my career like a butcher in a plant. And that means that the whole day I wouldn't see nobody, only meat and my coworker. And I didn't like this part because for me, the business is not actually cutting the meat, it's to interact with people. So I stated it's not my profession at all, because when I came to Israel, I didn't was a butcher, I learned the trade here. And the opportunity came because my late father-in-law was working in Glat at that time, and they had stores that would call Kosher Share Service. People that live in Montreal for a long time knows the store. And my father-in-law the store fell apart, and then my father got a part, like a store which was CSL Kosher. And then I started to work there, and I started to see, what, I like it. And why did I like it? I like it because I saw people all day, different people all day, and I love to talk. So perfect profession. So that's why I am in the business. A lot of people there is money in it, it's fine, but I enjoy more to interact with people rather than cutting meat.
Which is evident when you come in, because we come into Côte Saint Luc Kosher and Mrs. Ross on Westminster Avenue. It's on the corner of Côte Saint Luc. I also like it because it's great in parking, you know.
Right.
You know, you always find a spot, even if the parking lot is full, you just go a little to the side and you're going to find a space. And that's very important because if you need time to food shop, you need to not be worried about your car or the buses that are there. There's 2 buses there that you can take. It's access to transportation is very important. But it was the interaction when I walked in. Mrs. Roth is sitting there chatting with people. You came out, you were, speaking with the people, what they wanted, fill it up. You also have a wonderful rapport with your workers, talking
Yeah.
about what they're doing, what their expertise is, and the fact that some of them have been working there for years.
Many
Oh, yeah.
years. Many,
oh, yeah.
many years.
I think I mentioned this to you. I think the youngest worker, it's the girl, it's about 2 years, but beside her, everybody works there about
10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
You have
Yeah.
to treat people like family. And they
Well,
gotta
it is
treat
a
you
family.
like family. Okay?
So I asked you what your favorite food was, Mrs. Roth. I have to ask Avi because you're born in Israel, perhaps a slightly different tongue, slightly different taste. Is it the Eastern European? Is it the the
Eastern
Sephardic
European.
Moroccan?
Eastern European, because I grew up in an Eastern European home, and she cooks exactly, like Eastern, a lot of fat. That's very good. She's tasty. And
But in the
that's
store,
my favorite.
no fat. I cook at home
And-
different and in the store different.
And I like also Moroccan because my mom grew up in a neighborhood that mostly was Moroccan. So my mom also cooked Moroccan food. So I like food.
Well, it's evident when you walk into Côte Saint Luc Kosher on Westminster Avenue. It's a pleasure to walk in there. People are smiling. People are enjoying themselves. So I'm going to ask, who do I ask for? Let's say I said I want a Shabbat dinner. I have another couple with 2 children coming over. What would you suggest? Who do I ask, Mrs. Roth or Avi?
Both of us. Both of us.
She knows more than I do. I know the business, but not as good as she. Amounts, I'm horrible about it.
But Mrs.
But
Roth
Mrs.
is
Roth,
good at
no,
that.
yeah.
And I have people in the store already who knows already, if something happens to me, I hope nothing happens.
Chas v'chalila.
They know what to do.
But there's something interesting. A lot of people call in and just say their name, and you know what to send them. I mean, after 30 years, 35 years, 40 years with their case, people basically eat the same time. They rotate. They have 2 menus. 1 week you eat this, 1 week. I'm sure in your house is the same. You're always looking for something new. You end up.
I try to
doing-
surprise.
And you end up doing the same thing week and over. So there's a lot of people just call and say the name, and that's it. We send her. We know exactly what you want.
So if people are interested, it could be for Rosh Hashanah. After, of course, Rosh Hashanah, there's all the holidays, all the Chagim that come up afterwards. They can either drop in, they can taste test, they buy and taste
No
test
problem.
before,
No
or they
problem.
can call you and
Anytime
ask,
they can
And we
call.
deliver.
and you deliver. I also know you have a website. What would people look up to look at your website?
Well, the website is divided, to fresh cut meat and divided to cook food under subtitle Moroccan, European, Chinese. And there's everything in there what we do. So a lot of stuff on the website is not necessarily displayed in the store. That's what I was telling you, is that you could get whatever you want. And you have an idea, what kind of a store, what kind of a food. And by the way, a lot of people just drop in to taste because it's very hard to sell food over a phone. It's very hard. So in order for you to know what you want, you got to drop in, and taste it and see it. So a lot of it, in the beginning, they come in, they taste, and then
After
they just
they
go on the
know.
website and order.
Well, I have a wonderful story, but in a minute we're going to ask you for your website, but I had a wonderful story of somebody who we've had on the program. We were just chatting with you, and the person said, the first time they walked in, they looked at your schnitzel and they said, "Is this any good?" You generously cut off a piece and said, "You taste it."
Exactly. That's how it is. You have to be proud of what you're doing. You have to love what you do. Okay?
And also, we have a lot of people that never tasted anything, so we'll give them to taste because it's very hard to
No
explain
problem.
to somebody how the food tastes. People have different palates. Could be I like it, could be you like it, but nothing. So they taste it and they like it, they buy it, they don't, life goes on. But at least they have the choice. And it's expensive to buy food, right? So they should know what they buy.
It sounds tantalizing. Give me the website.
CSLKosher.com.
And the phone number is 514-747-6531.
Right.
If people are worried about the hour, or they don't check it up, They can either look it up at www.cslkosher.com, or you can call and speak to Avi or to Mrs. Roth at 514-747-6531. But you can go to the Westminster shop, and you can just find parking. You can go in and you can chat with Avi or Mrs. Roth. They'll be happy to chat with you.
I would like to add another phone number. It's 514-481-4094.
4094. Is there a difference in phone numbers?
I'm sorry?
Is there a difference who you're going to get?
No,
Just two different lines.
two different lines,
Mrs.
yeah.
Roth, you get on 747-6531.
Ah, if they want to speak to you directly.
But that's
Ah,
what I thought, anyway.
Perfect. Well, I'd like to thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
It's been a pleasure. We had a delicious weekend after the first time I dropped in, and so it was wonderful to have you in studio. I've been talking with Mrs. Roth and with Avi Brooke, the people behind the movers and shakers behind
Thank you very much.
CSL Kosher on Westminster Avenue. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.